Well,
S-
that's yeah.
Speaking of kings,
Well, in this case, queens. Yeah.
look, I
So
tried to transition. I tried.
you did your best. Yeah. So I watched the sixth and final season of The Crown, um, which is on Netflix. And if you missed, I did a review of season five when it came out, whenever that was. If you missed that one, basically, and if you don't know anything about The Crown, basically it's uh, the the life and the career of Queen Elizabeth II. Although they focus a lot on the other members of the royal family, but the main focus is meant to be on Queen Elizabeth. From and like the first two seasons were, her early years, and then three and four were her middle years, and then five and six were her later years.
Mhm.
Um, and but this season, I will say the last season and this season too, then they didn't really focus on her as much. There were a couple of episodes in there that I really liked, and I'll get to it in a second. But
Well, did this one have a bunch of Harry and Meghan's wild ride?
no, there was none of that, thankfully. Um, the fourth the first four episodes. So what Netflix did with this show, what they did with like Stranger Things, where they released the season in block episodes.
Hmm.
Um, so like the first four episodes were about the last 2 months of Princess Diana's life. um, and basically from like the time when she left England, and then to the car wreck in Paris, with
Mm.
and of course showing her relationship with Dodi Fayed, and they show his father Muhammad Al Fayed basically kind of manipulating the relationship, because
Mm.
he was trying to get into the good graces of the royal family, but it never happened. Um, but so then they basically had that, and like the after Diana's death, they had the whole episode where the royal family was trying to figure out how to acknowledge it and what to do about it. I will say, um, the Queen, the movie The Queen with Helen Mirren playing Queen Elizabeth, I thought did a better job of showing that
Mm.
than the show. Um, uh, so that was kind of interesting. I mean, they kind of portrayed Diana as being um, kind of a helpless, kind of like she was just like the victim of everything going on. But but they do kind
Mm.
of show like she would play the media, when it suited her. Um, but yeah, I mean, I mean, her life was a very tragic one.
Right. Married to somebody who wasn't ready to get married and liked someone named Camilla better. Camilla, that's the name of Gonzo's chicken.
Yeah, yeah,
Come on.
exactly. Yeah. But then the final six episodes were basically just about the later stuff that happened in the later, uh, actually probably from like after Diana's death to, I want to say it was about 2006 or 2007.
Mm.
Um, and they showed like William going off to college, or going off to, yeah, well, university. That's where he met Kate Middleton, and then their relationship. And then there was the little
Ah, the good royal marriage.
yes, the good royal marriage. And and then I don't know if you remember this, but when they went to Harry and Kate, and then and William, they went to a costume party, and Harry was wearing the uniform of the bad guys from World War II.
Mm. Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, they show that, and that's in the show. and they it's like it's on all the newspapers everywhere, and and
It makes me think of the Canadian royalty from South Park. Ignore us.
Yes, we want our privacy. Yeah, but and then but there were a couple of good episodes here and there. Like I think my favorite episode in the show was when it's during Tony Blair, when Tony Blair was prime minister. And we'll say the actor who plays Tony Blair was probably exaggerating him a little too much, like his
Mm,
voice and mannerisms. Um,
fascinating.
Fascinating. Yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. um, but so in the episode, the Queen asks Blair, like, well, what do you think? What suggestions do you have for what we in the in the royal family could do for to help with our image with the British people? And he was going through like all of the stuff that like, oh, do you really need like a swan keeper? Do you really need like this guy, this one guy here and this person there and everything? And then she goes and actually meets with all the people who work in these jobs, and she sees like, oh, they take great pride in what they do, like the keeper of the swans. I mean, he takes a lot of pride in what he does. And the guy, there's one guy who like folds all the napkins and on all the parties and everything. And he folds like hundreds of them. He's been doing it for decades, but he likes doing it. And she basically tells Tony, yeah, I'm not cutting any of that. So
A
go
funny thing about the British royal family is everyone always just acts like they're completely a drain on the British nation.
yeah.
Um, so I watched a video a while back, and I don't know if this is still true, but at least in like 2019 or so, um, so there was, I forget which British king it was, but he got into some debt, and so he and like really bad debt. So he and Parliament worked out a deal where the British government, like where Parliament would, in exchange for the income from his various properties, uh, they would pay him a stipend that would let him maintain his household.
uh,
Um, well, in the year where they were doing it, the British royal family is actually getting the worst part of that deal and has been for a while because
uh,
the rent and the value of their land, they're actually paying more into the kitty than they're getting out of it.
oh, wow.
So, financial arguments against the royal family, it's like, okay, unless you're just going to completely disabuse them of all their properties, you're not getting what you think you are if you kick them out.
Right. Yeah. 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 And for those of you who probably don't know this, Tony Blair was, I don't know if not him as much as his wife Sherry. His wife Sherry, by the way, very anti-monarchy.
Mm.
Um, and that's kind of a big reason why like the Queen and Tony Blair never really got along. Um,
So the Tipper Gore of England, in the sense of being a kind of obnoxious political figure who's there because she's somebody's wife.
exactly. Yeah. And what was also interesting too was in the first few episodes, like Tony Blair is I had forgotten this. He was pretty popular when he became prime minister. Like they really loved him, but then Iraq happened, and then that all went away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, now they don't like him as much. But yeah, so but the last episode was speaking of Camilla. That was the last episode was Charles and Camilla getting married, and the final shots of the final scenes in there are were with where they actually show like her casket, what it looked like at her funeral, and then the last shot is just her walking out of the church. It's kind of a symbolic thing where she's walking out of the church and then the doors open and a bright white light and she walks out. So
Okay.
yeah. But overall, I mean, not the best season of the show. But it might be worth watching just for that last episode, just to get some closure with with her and
I guess the problem with the biopic is that a lot of lives do kind of end kind of slowly.
Yeah. She was the oldest living monarch.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's and I actually think they had to do reshoots when they were filming this last season because
Mhm.
of the Queen's passing. Oh, yeah. But yeah,
So probably a better legacy than that episode of Peppa Pig she recorded.
yeah, yeah. I did not see that one.
I can't say I did either.
Yeah, but yeah, that's about it.